Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. I'm Pat Renfro, and here we are, the last Friday of 2021. This month, we've been talking about how to avoid loneliness. And this particular week, I want us to look at managing boundaries in the context of avoiding loneliness. If you have an issue with boundaries, you're going to potentially be offended when others say no. And if you're not careful, if you have a tendency with boundary management, meaning that you don't do so well with honoring other people's boundaries, then when they say no, you will be offended potentially. You will feel some kind of way, as they say. You will take it personally. But the reality is we live in a world where boundaries are important. If you think about it, there's boundaries on property if you own a home. There's boundaries from state to state so that one state is responsible for their own territory. There must be boundaries in marriage, even boundaries between husband and wife and children. Boundaries in friendships, boundaries at work. You have to work a certain kind of way. Even if you work at home, you've got to honor the hours and the conditions of the employment contract. Boundaries are important. Boundaries are kind of like managing a budget. And just like that, a lot of us, until we're trained, have a tendency to say, I don't want no stinking budget. I just want my money the way I want my money. As long as I can pay my bills, I'm not trying to project anything or control this spending. I just want to do what I want to do. I work for it. But there's a price to pay for every decision we make. And if they're good decisions, we can look forward to some woohoo. But they're bad decisions, we're going to have to pay some dues. So I don't want to go too far left. Just wanted to make the point that having boundaries and honoring other people's boundaries will take you a long way in life. And as we go into 2022, you're going to need to have boundaries as well. Your boundaries might be that you manage your time differently, or you manage how other people spend their time with you. You don't just say yes to everything because it makes other people happy. You have to say yes in context with what your goals are and what it is you're trying to do. So I just wanted to encourage you about the importance of boundaries, and then I'll bring the loneliness back to it. You know, loneliness is a sneaky little thing. It has a tendency to just creep up in areas that kind of can catch us off guard. And if we're not careful, we'll think one has nothing to do with the other. I'm just lonely because. But I like what I heard somebody say once. You can be in a room full of family, full of friends that you know care about you, and be lonely. So lonely is a mindset. Another thing that can cause loneliness to manifest is low self-esteem, or loneliness can also manifest because we are codependent. It's a really powerful thing. If we are people pleasers, if we are constantly doing things to make others feel good and to make others happy, but it's at our own expense, that's codependency. And that's a whole nother subject, a huge football field of information and knowledge out there that you can look into. But if you find yourselves at the expense of yourself, serving others, doing things for others, complying with others, because that makes you happy, that means there may be some codependency there. Again, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but life has given me a lot of wisdom, and I've just learned things over time. And so when you're looking at boundaries and you're looking at loneliness and you're saying, I don't want to say no because then I'll be lonely or I'll be lonelier, so I'll just say yes and push through. You're not managing your boundaries. You're putting yourself at stake for something you don't need, or you're feeling possibly resentful because someone else said no, Because what? They managed their boundaries. And you took it as them being mean or them being selfish or them being insensitive. But really, maybe they're doing what you need to work on. They're working on taking care of first things first. And, we go back to this all the time, but when you're on the airplane, what do they tell you to do? Put your seatbelt on first. Because when you put your seatbelt on, you are securing yourself so that you're able to help. But if we all tip over and fall, can't help anybody, right? Well, likewise, in life, we've got to manage our well-being. We've got to have self-care practices. We've got to have boundaries that say no to certain things and yes to others. You've got to have priorities. And when you have priority, maybe you can't do those things that you've been invited to do or that's been suggested to you or that another person needs, because you won't be able to accomplish what it is you need to accomplish. And we'll have a tendency, if we're not careful and we don't understand self-development, we don't understand boundary management, we don't understand codependency, those types of concepts can get clouded to the point where you're confused and you're taking things in the wrong context because you don't have clarity in certain areas. So as you end this year, I just want to encourage you to look back and rejoice on those things that went well. And if you struggle with that because you feel like this was a really rough year, think about what more could have gone wrong. Think about what you might have been spared from based on where you are today. Think about the things you can celebrate. Think about other people who didn't so much have even as good a year as you did. Look at the provisions that you have, the roof over your head, the job if you're employed, the ability to pay your bills so that you could run water in the sink, that you could get dressed and have a sound mind. I mean, we can go on, but as you end this year, try your best not to end it in regret, not to end it in blame, not to end it believing that it should have been, I wish it had been these things. And try not to leave this year thinking about who didn't do it the way you wanted them to do it, who hurt you, who left you bleeding or whatever, and think about how you want to take control of your life, not others, just yours for the year 2022. And you want to stop and say, what can I do to make my life even better in 2022 than it was in 21? What types of things can I assess that I need to do differently? And how can I give myself grace? Because we're not machines, and life is life, and it deals out a lot of different cards that may go the way you want them to go sometimes and may very well not go the way you want them to go. But the key is to be willing to keep your hope alive, to keep your fight alive, to say, you know what, I'm not going to be discouraged to the point of not functioning. I'm going to honor other people's boundaries, and I'm going to establish some myself. And if I really struggle with boundary management, I'm going to go get some help. I'm going to look at codependency and see what I can do differently, see if I am codependent, and if so, maybe what some of the root causes of that are, and then begin to do some work. Dr. Caroline Leaf does some great work on codependency, and she does some podcasts. And it would be really to your benefit if you know you struggle in that area to just listen. She's got a full kind of like 90-day, 95-day process that you go through to kind of undo that habit, that tendency, that behavioral mindset. But if we have good boundaries and we put things in context and we honor those who have their boundaries, we will not feel alone, and we will do well because we will know how to properly and in a healthy way connect with others. And really, if you get that mind straight, if you get to the point where you understand that nobody really owes you anything, not your children, not your best friend, not your co-workers, not your live-in mates, none of that. Just you are responsible for yourself. And you trust your Creator to guide you and give you direction and give you wisdom and give you grace to get through this crazy life that we live. But just don't give up and just be responsible for you and get rid of all the junk in your trunk as much as you can as you leap into 2022 with lots of hope, lots of vision, lots of determination, and lots of love. We need to have that and give that as much as we can in every area of our lives. You have a wonderful end of the year. Click that button to subscribe to my channel if you don't already. Don't forget, you gotta tap the bell so that when I upload every week, which I do, you will get a notification in your YouTube channel telling you you've got another video to watch from P2P Relates, and tell your friends about it. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for the comments. But I just wish you the best closure of this year and the best entry into the next. Be the best you can be. Be good to yourself. Be loving and kind, and it will be given back to you 100-fold. You have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for listening.